The Mummy was one of Jerry Goldsmith's final film scores, and he wasn't slowing down in the slightest. The most amazing thing about the score to me is all of the different types of scales he used in the film. So get ready, because I'm going to unwrap The Mummy. While we might have been taught our major and minor scales and made aware of some scales of limited transposition and some modes, we aren't really taught anything else, let alone how the scales we already know are actually used. We've also been taught that sharps and flats don't mix except in a few cases, which is something I've talked about in a previous video, but it's actually more than a few cases, as you'll see here. I've located a handful of different scales used in this movie, most of which I'm willing to bet you've never heard of. But really, was the use of all of these scales really called for though?
Trust me! It calls for it!
The Hungarian minor is a scale that has a flat 3 and 6 as well as a sharp 4. If you're a fan of the group Fifth Harmony, you've already heard the scale in the opening sax riff to Worth It. The first main theme we hear in The Mummy is in the Wagner 2-min, it's in 7/8 time and is in the Hungarian minor scale. I did find one source stating that this was in the harmonic minor, but there's no natural 4 here. Instead, there's a sharp 4. I was curious what this theme would sound like if it actually was in harmonic minor, so here's what that sounds like. The flat 3 and 6 give us the minor feel, and the sharp 4 and natural 7 give us the augmented second interval that makes this music feel Middle Eastern. But more about that later with a more relevant scale. The horn fanfare during the Night Borders is in a Lydian minor scale, meaning from our major scale we have a sharp 4, flat 6, and flat 7. Goldsmith's use of this scale is in somewhat of an adventurous way, similar to that of the typical use of Mixolydian. The Lydian opening gives us that uplifting excitement, but then the second section with the flat 6 and 7 bringing us back down and reminds us of the danger that is actually here. While I did find a source calling the opening theme scale as harmonic minor, which was wrong, that doesn't mean there isn't an example of it in the score. So shortly after the Lydian minor line in the horns, the strings have a 16-note run on the harmonic minor scale, serving as a minor feel for danger, but the augmented second between the 6th and 7th scale degrees aid in that Middle Eastern feel. But again, I'll explain why this sounds Middle Eastern in another section. The Caravan begins with a lovely flute solo in E-flat Phrygian dominant, a scale with a flat 2, 6, and 7. This scale has an augmented second interval to further drive the Middle Eastern sound. The reason for that is that this scale is very similar to the Maqam Hijaz and is quoted in a few places, namely in the Palestinian musicologist Habib Hassan Talman's book, The Music of the Arabs, and that the Maqam Hijaz conjures up the distant desert. With the main distinctive feature being that augmented second interval, you now know why this scale, along with the double harmonic scale and the regular harmonic minor scales, are used to represent the Middle East, just like the pentatonic scale is used for Asia. So naturally, themes from movies with a Middle Eastern setting use these scales, like in The Prince of Persia.
Long ago, in a land far away, there once rose an empire that stretched.
Or Lawrence of Arabia. The end of the Caravan mixes two different Lydian diminished scales since we have both a flat and natural 7 along with a flat 3 and a sharp 4, and both apparently have the same name. I'm not sure what the purpose it serves having both there other than that was just the sound that Jerry was going for. the harmonic minor inverse, which takes the intervals from the harmonic scale and inverts them, so we end up with a flat 2 and 7. My guess is that Jerry was going for the adventurous feeling of Mixolydian, but still wanted to have a hint of Middle Eastern distant desert sound with the augmented second between the flat 2 and 3. Of course, there's some octatonic sections in here. At the start of Discoveries, the English horn has a solo that's octatonic.
There's a cusp on this cheese dog. Yeah, who cares? These heavy rocks that just from ancient times is as strong today as it was then.
There's also octatonic runs in the woodwinds in the track The Mummy. This scale is mostly used in film scores for tension, like these scenes from Pirates of the Caribbean and Jurassic Park.
Species of rare form has been extinct since the Cretaceous period. I mean, this thing is.
Normophrygian is in here too on the track Rebirth with a flat 2, 3, 6, and 7. There's no Middle Eastern sound here, just a minor mode tension with that flat 2 wanting to pull down to the tonic. I'll give a shout out to David McCauley's channel that does a score breakdown of select cues, and he pointed out the Neapolitan scale, which is a flat 2, 3, and 6. I couldn't find a use of it in the score that was a bit easier to hear that hits all of the notes of the scale since the 4th is missing here. I also want to point out that David mentions a lot of tritones, especially in the Mummy theme. This is only a theory, but I'm willing to bet it was an intentional reference to the opening music of the original Mummy in 1933. There's so many different scales in this soundtrack, all with their own tensions and emotions, making it one of the more exciting soundtracks to listen to. It makes me wonder what other unique scales composers have used. But also, it wasn't Jerry Goldsmith's favorite score that he did, so I guess I'll have another one of his soundtracks to look at in the future.